Congratulations! You have just added the wrong Johann Müller to your family tree. Oh no! How could this happen? Well, family history is fascinating, but as we all know, it can be full of traps. Today we're looking at 3 of the most common genealogy mistakes, why they happen, and how you can avoid them. Mistake number 1. The name matches, so it must be my ancestor. Let's begin with the classic mistake. You're looking for your ancestor. Let's say his name was Johann Heinrich Müller. He was born in 1878 in Hamburg. You find the perfect record. Correct name, correct time period, correct town. And your brain immediately says, yes, excellent, this is my ancestor. Case closed. Except it isn't. Because there was also a Karl Johann Heinrich Friedrich Müller, who was born at about the same time in Hamburg, and a Johann Heinrich Ernst Müller, who was born just a few weeks before that. So, which one of them was your Johann Heinrich Müller? Why does it happen? Well, in many places, certain first names were incredibly common, and many families used the same names in every generation. Let's look at an example. A few days ago, I visited the town of Boitzenburg and found this memorial plaque for the young men from this small town who lost their lives in the First World War. As you can see, there were many men with the surname Behnke, sometimes spelled with a C, sometimes without it. And you can also see that 2 men named Paul Behnke are listed here. They were probably not brothers, but quite possibly cousins. And there were even 2 Karl Behnkes as well, despite the slight variation in spelling. That's what I meant when I said that many families used the same first names again and again. And German surnames, such as Müller, Meyer, Schmidt, Weber, Wagner, Zimmermann, and many, many more, are so common that you can actually find them everywhere. Why this causes problems? Well, once you attach the wrong person to your tree, every generation before that becomes wrong as well. This one wrong ancestor will send your research into an entirely different family line. Here are some ideas for a practical fix. Never identify your ancestor by name alone. Look for their occupation, spouse's name. Look at their children's names, religion. Check the witnesses in their baptism or marriage records, because in many cases these are family members. Be aware of their migration patterns. Try to find their address. Look at the neighbors. If the evidence is weak, keep searching. Build an identity from as many details as possible so you can tell your Johann Müller apart from all the others. Now let's move on to mistake number 2, which is probably the most common mistake today. Mistake number 2. Accepting online hints and other people's family trees. Why does it happen? Modern genealogy websites actively encourage fast clicking. And beginners especially tend to trust the information, often thinking, well, if it's provided by one of the major websites, it must be correct. And it feels efficient. You click on a suggested father, then another, and suddenly your family tree goes back 100 years. Yeah! Which is definitely the moment you should become deeply suspicious. Why this causes problems? Well, the problem is simple. Many people copy information from other online trees, believing them to be correct without checking them. And once a mistake appears online, it spreads like a snowball because these genealogy websites suggest them to you. Be aware, a mistake repeated 1,000 times is still a mistake. Practical fix. Treat online suggestions as clues, not evidence. Before adding anyone to your family tree, ask one simple question. Where's the original source? No source? Then proceed carefully and try to verify it. A large family tree is not automatically a good family tree. And the best genealogists are not the fastest. They are the most careful. And if you want to learn how to find those German church books and how to use them, I can recommend my Archon tutorial. Now we come to mistake number 3, which is one of the biggest challenges in German-American research. Mistake number 3, not being flexible with spelling variations. Why does it happen? This is extremely common in immigration research because surnames of immigrants changed constantly. However, many people researching their family tree often search only for one exact spelling and miss records entirely. If your ancestors were German, you will probably have come across this problem, because many names were frequently altered to keep the pronunciation, like the original spelling of Klein changed to Klein. They were translated from Schmidt to Smith. They were shortened, for example, Ranberger to Renberg, dropping 3 letters. They were Americanized, for example, Bush to Bush without the C. And the umlaute were all dropped. So Müller with the U and the 2 dots were changed to the spelling with UE or simply Muller, or Jäger was changed to Jäger with a W to keep the pronunciation and to drop the umlaut. Sometimes officials changed the names and wrote them as they heard them. And sometimes the immigrants themselves changed them, because nobody could spell the original name anyway. Be aware that in many German regions, names were not standardized until the late 19th century. Why this causes problems? If you search only for one exact spelling, well, the version you know, you may completely overlook your immigrant ancestor, because their original name may have been spelled differently. Practical fix. Be creative. There are so many ways you can try to find the original name. For example, try spelling variations. Change P and B, K, C, and G. Switch T and D, or CK with simply K, or J and Y, as we had the example of Jäger. You could also use artificial intelligence for phonetic searches. For example, I asked AI, how would the name Klein be spelled in German to keep the pronunciation? And the answer was, to preserve the English pronunciation of Klein in German spelling, the most likely original German form would be Klein, spelled Klein. And that's really the German last name, Klein, which by the way means little. You could also try translating names. If your ancestor's last name is Gardiner, but you know they were of German origin, you should try to translate the name, and you will come up with Gärtner, which is indeed a German surname. You can also use websites to check the spelling of the name. The first one I'd like to recommend is Geogen, which was created by Christoph Stöbel. This is the link, so you can pause here and take a picture of it, and I will show you how to use it in a moment. When you click on the link, you'll get to this site. Be aware, it's a modern map of Germany, the way it looks today, not the way it was when your ancestor left Germany. You'll see blue columns on the map. That's because the man who created it, Christoph Stöpel, inserted his own surname, Stöpel, because he wanted to know where it was distributed. All the names he included are based on 20th century telephone books. But I still like this map for two reasons. The first one is, you can see here on the right side, you're offered variations of the name. So if you can't find anything with the spelling you know, well, maybe you can try one of those that are being offered here on the side. This is now another map with the surname Walkes. Walkes is a quite uncommon surname. By the way, it's the surname of a German comedian. But I use this to show why I like it, the second advantage of this map. It's not surprising to see the name appear in big cities like Berlin or Hamburg. But it's quite unusual to see a name in such a sparsely populated area like East Frisia. When something like this happens with your ancestor's name, then this is the region where the name originated. And that's probably where you should start looking for your ancestor. I included a map for the surname Müller, and you can see it's everywhere. Basically, the whole country is covered in Müllers. So as I said, this map is very useful if you want to see alternative writing of the names, and if your ancestor had a surname that was rather less common, because then you will be able maybe to find the region where they originated. And now let me show you another map. The second link is nvk.genealogy.net/map. This map was compiled by CompGen, which is the German Society for Computer Genealogy. NVK is short for Namensverbreitungskarte, which simply means name distribution map. One of these examples where the German language is so amazing you could put everything together to get one of those long words. And now I show you how to use the map. When you click on that link, you get to this map. When you look at the left-hand corner, you can put in a surname, and then you have a choice between 2 years, 1890 and 1996. Let's start with 1890. All the names for this map come of a collection of German soldiers who served in the First World War, and all those dots were their places of birth. I put in the name Gering to give you an example. All the green dots you can see here were every German soldier named Gering, and you can see in this map that this includes the former eastern parts, because at that time they were part of Germany. Now let's use the 1996 option. All the names in the 1996 version are based on telephone books. And this is the reason why you see the dots only in modern Germany and no longer in those eastern provinces, because they, of course, are now parts of other countries. So you can still see the green dots, which were the 1890s Gerings, and the orange ones, which were in the telephone books in 1996. You can use this map to see if you misspelled your surname. If you don't have a spot at all, you probably have misspelled the name. But it can also help you to see from what area your ancestor might have come from, especially if you have a surname that was less common. Mistakes happen to everyone, even to experienced researchers. The important thing is learning how to recognize them before they grow into entire fictional family trees. And I hope that my tips will help you solve the problem. If you like these tips, I will continue the series. And if you enjoy family mysteries, be sure to watch my other video featuring one of the most surprising family history investigations I've ever encountered. What began as a routine search for an ancestor quickly led to a series of unexpected twists. And now I'm curious, which genealogy mistake caused you the biggest headache? And how did you finally solve it? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.